Right now, the largest volcano in Europe is sliding into the sea. Not erupting, sliding, a few centimeters a year in total silence, and it has never once stopped. Mount Etna, 3,300 meters of it in Sicily. And the reason volcanologists in Hawaii are paying very close attention to an Italian mountain is that the exact same thing is happening right now under Kīlauea. The south flank of Kīlauea is creeping toward the Pacific at about 10 centimeters a year, and in 2018, that slide let go just enough to throw a magnitude 6.9 earthquake. Same mechanism, different ocean, and the American one is bigger. So this isn't really a story about a foreign volcano. It's a story about a kind of failure that geologists have found on both sides of the planet, and only recently understood. Here's the part that keeps them up at night. Etna's flank doesn't move because of eruptions. It moves when there's no eruption at all, no earthquake, no magma pushing. And for decades, nobody could explain why, until GPS sensors caught it doing something the textbooks said was impossible. Because if the engine driving this slide isn't the volcano, then every warning system built to watch the volcano is watching the wrong thing. And the number that comes out of the tsunami models, the one that describes what happens if this flank ever stops creeping and starts falling, is 10 minutes. So, over the next few minutes, here's where we're going. What's actually happening under Etna in 2026? The discovery that overturned the theory, and why 10 minutes is a number the whole Mediterranean is not ready for. Start with the mountain itself, because the scale is the whole point. Etna has been erupting, on and off, for roughly 500,000 years, 500,000 years of near-continuous construction. It's the tallest active volcano in Europe, taller than most of the Alps' working peaks, and it doesn't sit in some remote wilderness. The city of Catania is about 30 kilometers from the summit. Vineyards grow on its slopes, people build homes on old lava fields, generation after generation, because the same volcanic soil that threatens them is some of the most fertile farmland on the continent. Sicilians don't describe Etna as a threat. They describe it as a neighbor. And for most of history, that was the correct read. Then came 2026. Etna has now spent roughly 6 straight months in near-continuous activity. In January, a fracture opened on the eastern flank at 2,000 meters. In April, the monitoring caught something stranger. The volcano pulling magma from about 80 kilometers down, a depth that had never been recorded there before. And on the night of June 26th, the ground tore open again. A fresh fissure at the base of the northeast crater, lava pushing down into the Valle del Bove, swallowing centuries of older rock. Dramatic footage. Every channel covered it. But the volcanologists watching weren't looking at the lava. They were looking at what the lava was standing on. Quick question before we go deeper. Have you ever stood on Etna, or on any coastline in the Mediterranean? Sicily, Greece, southern Italy, North Africa? Drop where you're watching from in the comments, because by the end of this, that geography is going to mean something specific, and I genuinely want to know who's listening to this from inside the map we're about to draw. Here's what the lava is standing on. Etna's southeastern flank, the entire seaward side of the mountain, is moving. Slowly. A few centimeters a year. And crucially, it moves all the time, not just during eruptions. A few centimeters sounds like nothing, but picture a camera planted on that flank 100 years ago. In that time, the ground under it would have shifted by several meters. An entire neighborhood quietly relocated downhill. The speed was never the scary part. The direction is. Because the flank isn't sliding sideways into more mountain, it's sliding toward open water, and a slope that's sliding toward the sea has exactly one way to end if it ever loses its grip. Can a whole volcano flank actually let go at once? It can. It has. And the closest example isn't in Italy at all. It's in Washington State, on a mountain most Americans watched fail on live television. May 18th, 1980. Mount St. Helens didn't just erupt. Its entire north flank collapsed first, the largest landslide in recorded human history, and the eruption came out of the wound. That's a flank collapse on land, and it flattened forests for miles. Now put that same failure on a slope that ends underwater, and you don't get a landslide, you get a wave. In 1792, the flank of Mount Unzen in Japan gave way and slid into the sea. The volcano barely erupted. The collapse itself generated a tsunami that killed roughly 15,000 people. Not from lava, not from ash, but from the ocean turning on the coast. And that was only a partial collapse. The Hawaiian record is worse. Buried on the seafloor around the islands are the fingerprints of ancient flank collapses that threw waves an estimated 300 meters high, the height of a 100-story building, waves that crossed entire ocean basins before they died. Now shrink that scenario down and drop it into a sea ringed by beaches where 200 million people spend their summers. That's the thing the scientists can't unsee. But the discovery that actually rewrote the science was still coming, and it made the problem harder, not easier. For decades, the theory was simple and satisfying. What moved Etna's flank was magma, internal pressure shoving the rock outward like toothpaste from a tube. Etna's an active volcano. Magma's always moving, case closed. Except researchers from the Open University and Italy's INGV bolted high-precision GPS sensors around the mountain and tracked every millimeter for years. And they caught the flank doing something that shouldn't have been possible. It kept sliding when the magma was at rest. No eruption, no pressure spike. The slope moving seaward entirely on its own. The engine wasn't the volcano. The engine was gravity, pulling on Etna's submerged slopes, the drowned part of the mountain we never see. And underneath those slopes, the sensors and models pointed to a fluid, a natural lubricant, reducing the friction, letting the whole flank glide like a book sliding across a wet table. Etna, in other words, is riding on a hidden layer of geological grease, and humans only confirmed it in the last few years. What that grease actually is turns out to be the strangest part of the whole story. Two ingredients make the slide work. The first is ductile rock. Under enough heat and pressure, stone stops behaving like stone. Twist a cold iron bar and it snaps. Heat it first, and it bends. The rock at the base of Etna's flank is cooked by the volcano above it, so it deforms slowly instead of locking in place. The second ingredient is the lubricant itself, supercritical fluids. Water and gas squeezed so hard, so hot, deep in the crust, that they stop being clearly liquid or gas. They enter a third state that behaves like neither. And in that state, they become incredibly mobile, seeping into microscopic fractures and coating them from the inside, cutting friction across an enormous surface. Motor oil in the gears of an engine, except the engine is a mountain. That's why, in January 2026, an international team proposed the Flank ED project, a plan to drill directly into Etna's flank and pull up physical samples of that lubricant and the deformed rock around it, something never attempted. Because even the most advanced models, published in 2026 in the Journal of Geophysical Research, still can't say when the sliding might accelerate. To predict the future, they need a real sample of the present. Quick pause here. If you've stayed with me through supercritical fluids and ductile rock and GPS millimeters, that actually means something. Most channels skip the mechanism, the part that explains why, because the mechanism doesn't perform as well as the explosion. This channel runs on people who don't skip it. So, genuinely, thank you for being here. And if you haven't subscribed, that's the thing that keeps stories like this one getting made. Okay, back to it. Because the reason any of this should matter to you might be closer to home than Sicily. Now the honest part, because this is where it's easy to overclaim and I don't want to. The scientists are clear. The immediate risk is low. The current sliding is in equilibrium, a slow, balanced creep, and no model shows an imminent collapse. Nobody is saying Etna will fall next week, next year, or next decade. The models suggest the flank could keep creeping in balance for centuries. What they also say is that it could accelerate, most plausibly during a very large earthquake or an unusually intense eruption. And that's the shift that actually matters. If the slide is driven by gravity and hidden fluids instead of magma, then the standard toolkit, watch for tremors, watch for eruptions, is watching the wrong signals. A volcano could sit perfectly silent and still speed toward the sea. That's the part that reaches past Sicily. The Kīlauea south flank in Hawaii, the Helens slump, is the same kind of gravity-driven slide, and it's the most closely instrumented flank on Earth precisely because it already produced that magnitude 6.9. The lesson from Etna is that these slopes need a different kind of surveillance. Sensors on the fluids, on microscopic deformation, on the seafloor itself. Most of the Mediterranean isn't equipped for that yet. Come back to that number, 10 minutes. If Etna's flank ever did collapse catastrophically, the tsunami simulations put the first waves on the Italian coast in under 10 minutes, Greece in about 20, North Africa in 30. 10 minutes is less time than it takes to read an alert, clear a beach, and reach high ground. And here's what won't resolve. Science isn't telling us Etna will collapse. It's telling us it could, and that if it did, no warning system in place today would be fast enough to matter. The flank is still moving as you watch this. The lava from June is still cooling in the Valle del Bove. The sensors are still recording every breath the mountain takes. Not because Etna is malicious, because it simply exists. And it's been sliding toward that sea since long before anyone was measuring, and it will keep sliding long after. The planet doesn't move on our schedule, it moves on its own. The only real question left is whether we finish learning to listen before the flank decides to stop creeping and start falling.